Leo soul, radiant and bold, what if I told you that something far greater than you ever imagined is already unfolding for you right now, and the reason you're here is no accident? That's right. You didn't stumble upon this video randomly. You were called by the universe, by your guides, by something ancient inside of you that recognizes this moment as sacred. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness. I'm honored to guide you today, as someone in the top 0.1% of astrology, tarot, energy healing, and law of attraction therapy. And this message is not just a reading, it's a divine invitation. You are about to step into a chapter that is bigger than your dreams, brighter than your past, and aligned with your true cosmic purpose. Leo, the current energies surrounding you are electric. You're walking through a portal right now, one where timelines shift and destinies awaken. A spiritual realignment is in motion. You can feel it in your chest, your gut, maybe even in the way people have been treating you lately. And that feeling? It's not confusion. It's activation. The universe is sending you two clear signals. 111, you are entering a new beginning. A soul awakening. A cosmic yes. 822, this is not random. You're reaping what you've stayed loyal to in your heart, even when no one else saw. This video will help you decode what these signs mean for your love life, career, emotional healing, and spiritual leadership, all aligned with your Leo essence. Now let's talk astrology. You are ruled by the sun, the only star in our planetary system. You don't orbit around others. You were born to shine. And right now, the tarot confirms that your light is no longer meant to be hidden. In this reading, 5 cards have stepped forward for you. The Sun, the Fool, Knight of Wands, Ace of Wands, and the Magician. Together, they form a cosmic map of bold action, passionate rebirth, and creative power. Something that seemed impossible is not only possible, it's inevitable if you say yes. So take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a second if it feels right. And ask yourself, why am I here, in this exact moment? The answer is already inside you. And if you're already feeling that tingling in your chest or that spark behind your eyes, then I invite you to comment below right now with the words, I'm ready for the divine unfolding. Let the universe know you're awake and open to receive. Let me also take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for your presence here today. Every like, every comment, every share, and every subscription brings you closer to this spiritual family we're building at Eternal Mindfulness. Thank you from the depths of my heart. Your support fuels this work and allows me to deliver these life-shifting messages with integrity, intention, and infinite love. And Leo, you're going to want to stay with me until the very end of this video. Because what the universe is about to reveal is breathtaking. So now, tell me, what have you done to call this into your life today? Let's find out together. There is a sacred rhythm to your journey, Leo, and right now, you're standing at a point where everything you've planted in the dark is about to bloom under the full light of the sun. The tarot card, the Sun, which holds a profound resonance with your zodiac sign, is not just a symbol, it's a reflection of your true nature. You were never meant to play small. You were never meant to dim your brilliance to fit into a room that wasn't built for your light. And yet, so often, the path to becoming who we are meant to be requires us to walk through seasons of quiet, of invisible work, of inner trials, of growth that no one claps for. But now, the universe speaks clearly. It is time to rise. The Sun card doesn't just signify joy or success on the surface, it speaks to a deeper cosmic alignment. It reveals that who you are when no one is watching is finally being aligned with who you are meant to be when everyone is. It means that your essence, your spirit, and your heart are finally ready to be seen not through the lens of ego or approval, but as a source of inspiration for others. There's a quiet kind of leadership that emerges here, one that doesn't dominate, but illuminates. You, Leo, are the torchbearer. In astrology, the Sun is your ruling planet, or more precisely, your ruling star. It is not a wanderer among planets, but the center, the gravitational source that keeps all else in orbit. This isn't just metaphor. It's a blueprint of your energy. When you are in alignment with your core truth, everything else around you, relationships, opportunities, ideas, begins to find its right place. But when you hide or diminish your light out of fear of judgment or rejection, the whole system becomes misaligned. Think of the flower that waits for daylight. It doesn't force its bloom in the darkness, nor does it question whether it deserves the warmth. It simply knows when it's time. In the same way, you don't need to force yourself to be ready, you only need to recognize that the light is already shining on you, and you are being invited to open. In meditative traditions, there is a teaching that when the mind becomes quiet and the self no longer clings to fear or desire, the natural radiance of being begins to shine through. This radiance is not something you earn. It is something you remember. That's what this moment is asking of you, to remember the light you carry, and allow it to take its place in the world. Let yourself be seen, Leo, not because you need validation, but because the world needs the kind of light that comes from authenticity. Your presence, when it is true, becomes a refuge for others who are still trapped in their own shadows. And here lies the great paradox: when you shine without needing to be seen, you become the very beacon that others gravitate toward. This is not the time to retreat. This is not the time to edit yourself to fit someone else's expectations. This is your time to radiate. The sun does not apologize for its brilliance. Neither should you. So as you sit with this energy, ask yourself softly, where have I been holding back? And am I ready now, truly ready to step into the space that life has been clearing for me? Because once you say yes to your light, the universe begins rearranging everything in your favor. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when life no longer fits the shape it once held. The stories you told yourself start to feel too tight, like clothing that no longer stretches with your movement. The Fool appears exactly at that threshold, not as a warning, but as a gentle invitation to step forward into the unknown with trust, not certainty. This card is not about recklessness, as it's often misunderstood. It's about readiness without reassurance. And in your case, Leo, this readiness stems from a deeper truth: you've outgrown the container that once protected you. Now, it's time to leave the cocoon and test the strength of your wings. The Fool doesn't ask you to erase your past. It simply asks you to stop letting it define who you're allowed to become. Whether it's an outdated job title, a relationship where your light is dimmed, or a pattern of self-doubt you've clung to for safety, there is something you're still carrying that doesn't belong to the version of you that is about to emerge. This isn't about starting over from scratch. It's about allowing yourself to be reshaped by what you've already lived through. In the language of energy, the Fool speaks to what's called beginner's mind, a state where you meet life without the armor of expectations. It's a sacred opening, where possibility becomes more real than fear. Think about a river as it winds its way through the land. It doesn't ask the earth for permission. It doesn't question whether it's good enough to keep flowing. It simply follows gravity, that natural, invisible pull that keeps it in motion. Your journey now is to trust your own inner current in the same way. Let go of the need to know where every step leads. Let life reveal the next stone as you move forward, one breath, one moment at a time. There's a powerful teaching that says, when we stop identifying with what we think we are, we become what we actually are. That's what the Fool calls you into, a space beyond titles, roles, and personal history. Not because those things didn't matter, but because they were chapters, not the whole book. In order to enter the next room, you must be willing to close the door behind you gently, respectfully, but fully. And yes, uncertainty can feel terrifying. Especially for a sign like Leo, who often finds strength in clarity, purpose, and visibility. But what if your power now lies not in being seen, but in seeing differently? What if the leap you're being asked to take isn't about moving faster, but softer into a direction that makes no logical sense but feels intuitively aligned? You may not know what's on the other side of this change: the new job, the creative calling, the city you've been drawn to without knowing why. But the fact that you feel the pull is the proof that something is there. Like a lotus seed reaching through the murky water, you don't need to know exactly where the light is, only that it exists, and you're being pulled toward it. So ask yourself honestly, what old version of me am I still carrying because I'm afraid to step into the unknown? What identity, what fear, what story must I thank and release, so that I can walk barefoot into this new chapter with nothing but trust and the beating of my heart? Because here's what I know, and what I promise you: when you step into the unknown, guided not by fear but by inner alignment, the path will rise to meet your feet. Every time. When the Knight of Wands appears in a reading, it doesn't whisper, it arrives like a flare in the night, like the striking of a match in a darkened room. For Leo, whose essence is already carved from fire and ruled by the sun, this card is less of an external invitation and more of an inner awakening. You may have felt it recently, a growing sense of urgency, a restlessness in your chest, the feeling that you can't quite sit still in your own life anymore. This is not anxiety. It's the stirring of your next becoming. The Knight of Wands is the embodiment of aligned momentum. It carries the energy of one who no longer waits for perfect timing or validation, but instead responds to the spark inside and begins with courage, with heart, and without apology. And this is exactly what the universe is asking of you now. Not that you figure it all out, not that you have a detailed map, but that you trust the fire within you enough to move. In astrology, the suit of wands aligns with the fire signs Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, the initiators, the visionaries, the soul-driven creators. And when this knight rides into your spread, it often means a doorway is opening. You might not see the full threshold yet, but your body, your intuition, your dreams, they're all speaking to you. The yes has already been given. Now it's your turn to respond. There's a teaching that says action without attachment is the highest form of movement. What this means is that your task is not to obsess over the outcome, but to respond with integrity to the moment as it arises. That is where power lives, not in certainty, but in presence. This knight teaches you that hesitation often comes from the false belief that you need more proof, more preparation, more permission. But what if all you really needed was your own willingness to begin? Momentum is not created by waiting. It's created by daring to take the first step, even when your voice shakes or your path isn't clear. And Leo, let's be honest, you weren't built for stillness. You were born to burn brightly, to move with heart, to inspire others not through words but through lived example. You lead best when you're being true to what lights you up. This card is often a sign that a window of opportunity is opening in love, in creative pursuits, in leadership, or even in physical movement. You may meet someone who activates you in a new way. You might suddenly feel drawn to begin a passion project or relocate your energy entirely. The key is to trust your instinct, especially if it repeats or returns stronger each time you try to dismiss it. Much like the flame that needs oxygen to grow, your inner fire needs movement to stay alive. And while contemplation has its place, there comes a time when clarity only comes from doing. Just as the archer cannot know the flight of the arrow until it leaves the bow, you will not know what's waiting for you until you move toward it. Trust that this fire is not chaos, it is a compass. So I ask you now, not from a place of pressure, but of possibility. What would happen if you stopped waiting and allowed yourself to act from the place inside you that already knows? What if you let your fire guide you, not to the safe and expected, but to the wild and fulfilling? If this speaks to something stirring inside you, don't just listen, respond. Let your first step be now. Comment below, I am ready to act. Let that be your signal to the universe that you're no longer waiting for a sign. You are the sign. There are moments in life when the universe places something in front of you that feels charged not just with possibility, but with a kind of sacred electricity. The Ace of Wands carries exactly that energy. It's not simply a card of beginnings, it's a signal that something alive is reaching out to meet you. It often doesn't come wrapped in certainty. In fact, it rarely does. Instead, it appears as a spark, a pull in the chest, a flash of insight, a rush of creative fire that arrives so quickly it feels like it came from somewhere beyond thought. And yet, it always meets you at the perfect time, even if you don't feel ready. For Leo, a sign born of fire and ruled by the sun, the Ace of Wands is more than an external offering, it is a remembrance. It's the moment your inner flame recognizes itself in an external opportunity. Maybe you've been feeling it lately, a tug to create something new, to explore a different path, to say yes to a relationship or project that both excites and unnerves you. This is not random. This is a gift. And the only thing you need in order to receive it is space, not physical space, but energetic room inside your life, your heart, and your identity. This is where the wisdom of the Four of Pentacles becomes essential. That card reminds us that grasping tightly to what once gave us stability can now become the very thing that blocks the flow of grace. Think of someone holding a handful of dry sand. The tighter they squeeze, the more it escapes. The same is true for anything you're clinging to simply because it's familiar, a job that no longer reflects who you are, a version of yourself you've outgrown, a belief that tells you you're not ready. These things may have served a purpose once. But now, they are weight, not foundation. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities or taking reckless risks. It means becoming honest about what is truly aligned, and having the courage to release what is not, even if no one else understands why. In ancient teachings, there is a principle that what is empty can be filled, and what is still can be moved. The Ace of Wands is the movement. But you must become the vessel. The opportunity arriving for you may not come with guarantees, but it will come with meaning. It may look like a career shift that better reflects your soul's gifts. It may look like a person who challenges you to feel more deeply than you've allowed yourself to in a long time. It may even come as a spontaneous invitation, one that on paper makes no sense, but in your gut feels like destiny whispering. Whatever it is, it will ask you not for perfection, but for presence. It will not knock twice. And if you feel hesitation rising, know this: the most profound journeys often begin not with confidence, but with willingness. That one moment of yes, given from the center of your being, can change the entire shape of your future. But you cannot say yes with full hands. You must place something down. So ask yourself gently, without judgment, what am I still holding on to that no longer reflects who I am now becoming? And more importantly, am I willing to release it, not because it was wrong, but because I am ready for something more true? If this resonates with you, let that be your signal. Let yourself be seen. Comment "I'm ready to receive" below and allow that intention to ripple out into the field. Because right now, something sacred is being handed to you, and if you can make space, it will take root and burn bright. There is a sacred point on every soul's path when desire and readiness meet, not in theory, but in embodied truth. That moment, when thought and emotion, will and intuition merge into a single pulse of clarity, is what the magician represents. It is not about manifesting through force. It's about becoming a channel through which reality shapes itself, not by accident, but through conscious creation. And Leo, right now, you are standing at exactly that threshold. The energy of this card does not simply arrive to show you what's possible, it's here to remind you that you are the one who makes it possible. In tarot, the magician holds all four elemental tools: the wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle, symbolizing the complete capacity to direct energy into form. But these tools don't function from intellect alone. They require alignment. They require presence. They require you to remember that creation doesn't start with effort, it starts with awareness. From a cosmic perspective, this card speaks to your ability to work with the law of attraction in its purest form, not through wanting, but through being. Imagination is not a wish. It is the blueprint. Emotion is not decoration. It is the magnetic field that draws experience into reality. Belief is not hope. It is the quiet root system that sustains your vision, even when the world around you hasn't caught up yet. An action not frenzied or desperate, but intentional and clear, is the step that completes the circuit. When these four elements meet within you, you no longer wait for the future to happen. You begin to build it from the inside out. There's a simple but powerful teaching that says, the mind creates the world. When the mind is still, the world reflects stillness. When the mind is joyful, the world responds in kind. This is not metaphor, it's energetic law. Everything you perceive begins with the internal lens through which you are observing. The magician asks you now, what are you rehearsing mentally each day? What visions are you practicing, whether you're aware of them or not? Because whether you are focused or distracted, hopeful or afraid, you are always creating something. This is why inner clarity matters more than external control. To align with your next level, you must stop trying to chase it, and instead become the frequency of what you seek. You don't attract love by searching desperately, you become a place where love naturally lands. You don't summon abundance through stress, you align with abundance by learning to feel supported even before the results arrive. That's the magician's quiet mastery, the art of holding the vibration of the outcome before it manifests. So here's a simple practice I invite you to try. Take a moment after this video ends. Close your eyes. Write down the one thing you deeply long for, not the version you think is realistic, but the one that moves your spirit when you imagine it. Now picture yourself already living it. Notice the details. What do you see? Who is with you? How do you feel in your body? Don't try to force it, just let it rise gently. Stay there, in that inner experience, for 1 full minute. Breathe into it. That's all. 1 minute of real presence with your future self. That minute is more powerful than hours of scattered worry or doubt. You are not a passive participant in your fate. You are the bridge between the formless and the formed, the vessel through which dreams take shape. Let your imagination be sacred. Let your belief be unshakable. And let your small actions today carry the quiet confidence of someone who knows that the universe rearranges itself every time you fully show up. This is not magic as spectacle. This is magic as self-remembrance. And it is already within you. So here you are, Leo, standing at the edge of something vast, something luminous, something that deep down, a part of you has always known was meant for you. Everything in this moment is asking you not for perfection, but for presence. Not for proof, but for faith. Because what's coming is greater than what you've dared to imagine, and the only requirement is that you show up for it as your whole self. You are not just witnessing a shift, you are the shift. Every card that came forward in this reading, every number, every intuitive pull, all of it has been leading you back to a truth you may have forgotten, that you are the one who carries the flame. You've held it quietly during nights when no one saw your tears. You've kept it alive while walking through endings, betrayals, and silence. You've chosen hope even when it didn't seem rational, and now the universe is responding. This is not a coincidence. This is the return of everything you anchored in love when no one was watching. The question now is not, will it happen? It's, will you let it? Can you release the versions of yourself that were shaped by survival, by people who couldn't see your worth, by seasons that no longer reflect who you are now? Can you say yes to the dream, not the one that fits neatly on a vision board, but the one that scares you because it's too true? If you felt something rising inside you as you listened today, a stirring, a quickened breath, a sudden clarity, don't ignore it. That's not emotion. That's your inner wisdom answering the call. And the more you honor that voice, the more your external world begins to rise to meet you. So I invite you to pause and ask yourself, what part of me is ready to be seen, not someday, but now? What old story am I ready to retire? And what would my life begin to look like if I started living from the truth that I have already been chosen, not for a struggle, but for a purpose? And if this message found you at just the right time, if it echoed something deep inside your being, then I invite you to take a moment and ground that connection. Comment below with the words, I have been chosen. Let this be your personal affirmation, your permission to move forward boldly and without apology. Before we close, let me take a quiet moment to thank you truly for being here. Your energy, your presence, your willingness to listen, reflect, and expand means more than you know. Every comment you leave, every like, every share, every time you subscribe to this space, you're not just supporting a channel. You're co-creating a field of healing, clarity, and light with all of us here at Eternal Mindfulness. You're helping us carry this work farther than algorithms ever could. So from the deepest part of my spirit, thank you. And I promise you this, what you do with the wisdom you've received today is where the real magic begins. Because if you choose to step forward from this moment not perfectly, but honestly, then not only will your life begin to shift, you will become the light that helps others find their way too. And that, dear Leo, is the greatest gift of all. Until next time, stay bold, stay open, and remember the fire you carry was never meant to be hidden.